What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 11 top 12 fantasy football defense rankings. Definitely think there are some quality options this week. Hopefully, this video helps you guys go out, hit the waiver wire, or just choose between your defenses for Week 11. If you guys enjoyed the video, smash that like button, subscribe. Any questions, feel free to drop them down below. But let's just dive right into Tier 1. We have a few defenses in this tier, but I'm going to start off with the Vikings going up against the Titans. This is about as perfect of a defensive matchup as you can get. You have the Vikings, which are the #1 fantasy football defense in points per game, and they just have a prime matchup going up against the Titans. The Titans have the fewest implied points this week. Defenses going up against the Titans are averaging the second most fantasy points per game. I will say, Will Levis actually looked pretty decent in Week 10, but it's a different story when you're going up against the Vikings. They've made very good quarterbacks look average to poor so far this season. This is just a great spot for them. I think it would be hard to make a case for any other defense to be #1 here. So I do like the Vikings at the top spot, but I do have a couple other teams that I think slot here into Tier 1. The #2 defense is going to be the Lions going up against the Jaguars. The Lions have been a solid fantasy defense. They are 6th in points per game. The Jaguars have the second lowest implied point total. This is assuming that there's no Trevor Lawrence, which it seems like it's probably trending that way. I don't really see him trying to play through, I think it's a shoulder, when this team is pretty much out of the race at this point. In Week 10, we saw Mac Jones get the start. It did not go well. He had 2 picks, also lost a fumble. Lions, good defense. Jaguars are going to be a struggling offense. That's a nice match. And then the third team here, the Packers going up against the Bears. Pretty similar story. They've been a solid fantasy defense, 8th in points per game. The Bears have the 3rd lowest implied point total. They just fired Shane Waldron, which I guess is a plus as a Bears fan. I'm pretty happy with that. But this offense has completely fallen apart over the last 3 games. They have 27 total points in those last 3, so averaging under 10 points a game. They've pretty much, regressed negatively significantly over the last few weeks. Packers defense is solid. I think those 3 are very, very strong plays. Now moving into Tier 2, going to start off this tier with the Texans going up against the Cowboys. The Cowboys are tied for the 3rd lowest implied point total, tied with the Bears there. In Week 10, we saw the Texans force 10 turnovers, 10 Jared Goff interceptions against a very good Lions offense. And then on the other side, we saw the Cowboys have 5 turnovers. Cooper Rush really struggled, passed for under 50 yards, I believe on like 23, 24 attempts. So it was a rough game all around, for the Cowboys. Texans are coming off a solid defensive game. I think they're a nice play with no Dak. Then we have the Rams going up against the Patriots. The Rams defense is 11th in points per game, so nothing crazy, but still pretty solid. Defenses going up against the Patriots are averaging the 5th most points per game, and then the Patriots have the 6th lowest implied point total. I do think Drake May has given this offense a little bit of juice, but he's still prone, to make some mistakes. He's had some turnovers, his time as a starter. So even though I think he's raised the ceiling of this offense, I still think it's a solid matchup for defenses to attack. And then the last team in this tier is going to be the Jets going up against the Colts. The Colts have the 7th lowest implied point total. I thought, I think they thought that Flacco coming in, taking over, would maybe raise the floor of this offense, maybe also raise the ceiling. That has not happened. Since Flacco has taken over as the starter over the last 2 games, they have scored 33 total points. He has 2 touchdowns and 6 turnovers. So I do think this is a spot where the Jets defense are a solid play, even if they haven't, lived up to expectations so far this season. Now moving into Tier 3, going to start off with the Dolphins going up against the Raiders. And for most of this season, the Dolphins defense had been pretty unplayable for fantasy. They had not been a reliable option, but I do think this is a nice spot here against the Raiders. We actually just saw this Dolphins defense hold the Rams to 15 points. Pretty impressive over an offense that, had kind of been cooking. Stafford at quarterback, they had their weapons back. But looking at this matchup here, the Raiders have the 5th lowest implied point total. Defenses going up against this Raiders offense are leading all defenses in points per game. Their quarterback position is all over the place. I do think this is a solid spot here for the Dolphins. My 8th ranked defense is going to be the Broncos going up against the Falcons, and it's not a great matchup. The Falcons, very capable offense here, but this Broncos defense has been very productive. They are 2nd in points per game. They're getting some respect from Vegas. The Falcons actually have the 8th lowest implied point total. And when we do look at this Falcons offense, they did kind of just get held to 17 points by the Saints. That's not some sort of stellar defense. The Broncos held up well against the Chiefs. Even though it's not a dream spot here for them, I still think they're a capable play. And if they did have a much better matchup, they'd obviously be ranked much higher given the success they've had so far this season. Two more guys in this tier, two more teams. We have the Chargers going up against the Bengals. This is kind of a similar spot. You have a very, very good defense going up against a very, very good offense. The Chargers are 5th in points per game. They haven't had a team score over 20 points on them over the entire season. I want to say it was like early on, the Steelers put up 20. Since then, they have been pretty much locked down here. On the other side, I am pretty high on this Bengals offense. Joe Burrow's been balling this season. Jamar Chase, obviously coming off of his nuclear game. It's just one of these spots where it's like which side is going to win out. So I do think the Chargers are playable based on how well they've been, but I definitely don't think they're like a smash play because of this matchup. And then the last team in this tier, we have the 49ers going up against the Seahawks. The Seahawks are bottom 10 in implied points. And then I guess maybe surprisingly to some, defenses going up against the Seahawks have actually been scoring the 6th most points per game. I believe Geno's tied for the league lead in interceptions. So some turnovers can definitely be caused here. I think the 49ers defense is probably a little bit better than what they've shown so far this season, so I do have them in the top 10. And then my final tier here, tier 4, we're going to go with the Saints going up against the Browns. Now, the Saints have not been some amazing defense. I don't necessarily love them as a unit, but the Browns here, they have the 9th lowest implied point total. And then you look at Jameis Winston. He's definitely raised the ceiling of this offense. He could go out, have a great game like he did against the Ravens, but he is also very turnover prone. The floor is somewhat low, and that could lead to, a favorable spot here for the Saints defense. And like I mentioned with the Falcons, they actually had a pretty good showing against them in week 10. And then the final tier here, we have the Bills going up against the Chiefs. Now, even though the Chiefs offense hasn't been great this year, it always feels sketchy, like trying to play, a defense going up against them. Maybe that's just like PTSD from them being so good for so long. Last couple of years, the offense hasn't been as great. The Bills have been a solid defense, 4th in points per game. KC's middle of the pack with a 22 implied point total. So I think the Bills are fine to play. Obviously not a great matchup, but if there's not a quality team on waivers or you like them rest of season, I do think they still could be playable this week. But that's going to wrap it up for my top 12. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe. Any questions, drop them down below. Thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.